All right, Justin, go ahead and tell us, spell your name and your title and give us a website that we can follow.
All right. Howdy, Mr. Alejandro. Thanks for having me on today's call. My name is Justin Bradley Reyes. I'm currently the manager of member engagement within the Latino Corporate Directors Association, and you can learn more about us at latinocorporatedirectors.org.
All right, very good. All right, now we're going to start right into our podcast. Are you ready?
Let's go.
That was the heavy lifting. All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or thank you for tuning in to the Growing Our Future podcast. Never know when somebody's tuning in to watch to see what we're going to share and the incredible guests that we have. And today is no exception. You know, I'm really honored to have today's guest because I've had a front seat watching this man's career. And it is fascinating to watch somebody not only create opportunities, but take advantage of those opportunities. And the other thing that excites me about his passion for life and for self-improvement is he's always asking, what's next? What else can I learn? Where else can I go? And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we have Justin Reyes. Justin, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Mr. Alejandro. I really am looking forward to today's conversation.
Well, and you're no stranger to the FFA, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I was a member of the Cotulla FFA chapter in high school, got an opportunity to serve as a Winter Garden district officer, and spent 2 years as a high school educator out in Forney, Texas.
That's awesome. We're going to dive into that just a little bit more as we get started. Justin, every one of these episodes we start off with one question. And that question is, what are you grateful for today? When we think of all the noise of the world and all the headaches and trials, and when we cut right down to it, I guarantee you there's something to be thankful for. What are you thankful for today?
Oh, Mr. Alejandro, I am thankful for life, but I'm thankful for a life that starts with my family, right? My wife, Courtney Reyes, also former agricultural science educator, my 2 fur babies, Bailey and Begonia, my family back home in Texas, mom, dad, sister, aunts and uncles, and my extended family in Chicago. But more than that, I'm thankful for the colleagues that I have, friends in this space, this nonprofit association management space that I've had the opportunity of meeting and learning from, much like individuals like yourself. So again, just grateful to be a part of these spaces and thankful to have a voice as a young professional here in the Midwest.
Wow, that is awesome. I'm with you. Everything that you said, I'm with you. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for my country. Do we have flaws? Sure, we have flaws, but I still love my country. I'm grateful for the opportunities that we have. I'm grateful for a job. You know, I was talking to a group the other day and I said, you know, if I do it right at the end of the month, I might have just a little bit money left over. And if I have a little bit of money left over, guess what? I might be able to help somebody else along their journey. So, you know, there's a lot to be grateful for. So thank you for sharing, because I'm with you. I'm grateful for all those things.
No, I couldn't agree more myself.
All right. So let's talk about your FFA journey. So take us through your FFA journey and how your FFA journey kind of created a domino effect, and how one domino tumbled and it created another opportunity, and kind of how you came to this professional position that you're in today.
Oh, definitely. It's been a journey. And I think it really starts with failing forward, right? Understanding that whatever you take on, you may not be able to achieve the success that you strive for, but success, whatever it is, small or little, large, goes a long way. So my journey with FFA, the Future Farmers of America, started completely by accident. It started my freshman year. I enrolled in woodshop, actually, next door. But at the time, I was having blackouts on my vision. So my parents, my shop teacher, my counselors all agreed it probably didn't make sense to throw me in a class where I might accidentally not only cut my fingers off, my educators. And so, you know, just trying to figure out, where is it I'm going to fit next, right? That landed me next door in the Ag 101 classroom with Teddy Bird. Teddy Bird is
Yeah.
a very early mentor, role model of mine that was a little different than who I was surrounded with by my family. So, and Teddy saw something in me. I don't know what it was. I was full of passion, full of love, full of joy. Not really confident in myself to express that. And guess what? It started with the FFA Creed.
Oh, wow.
And I bet you, I don't think we have enough time here, but I bet you I could probably recite it second or third try. But it started with that. And so Mr. Bird provided me an opportunity to get dressed up in that FFA jacket we all love and remember, right?
Wow.
Those slacks and those dress shoes, putting together a presentation with your passion about that FFA Creed, right? And why it resonates. And it just took off from there. It started with leadership development events, spilled over in the spring to career and development experiences. I was a milk spitter. I was not the best, but I was up there in South Texas and in the dairy foods judging contest. But anyway, all of those events, those programs, the camps, the Texas Leadership Challenge, area camps, state convention, it all provided me the opportunity to gain professional development. And earlier we were talking about our networks, right? A network beyond LaSalle County, Cotulla High School. It was a network of other young students in agriculture across not only the state of Texas, but later on throughout the country. So yeah, I mean, you could say that's where Justin was born. And applying a lot of what I learned, the successes, the failures, the areas where I fell short, I've reflected and applied to my life currently. And so graduated Cotulla High School in 2008, pursued an agricultural science degree at Texas A&M, where Teddy Bird went to, and a lot of the ag teachers who I looked up to, went there. And so I figured there's a culture there that I need to explore. Let's go check it out. And I really did want to go to Texas Tech, but Aaron, that's a 12 plus hour drive versus 4 hours. So that's why I ended up in East Texas. But anyway, studied ag science, was really involved within the future agricultural science teachers of tomorrow. Aggie Bonfire was a phenomenal experience. Had the opportunity to student teach in Columbus, Texas, under Kevin and Wendy Page and Roxanne Herberick. And so that was a very much needed hands-on experience. But shortly after that, I graduated from A&M and decided I wasn't ready for the classroom. And so what I did was I applied for the Texas A&M Agriculture and Natural Resources Public Policy Internship Program.
That's right. Oh, that's great.
What does that mean, right?
It's great.
That means Justin, who's born in South Texas, working border town USA out in the fields, had a chance to go from the fields to the halls of Congress, attending these congressional meetings around public policy that affected agriculture and by extent our lives, right? It was amazing because that internship landed me at my first paid role in association management, nonprofit management, right?
Wow.
So,
wow,
Aaron, week two on this internship, I was staying at the Biltmore in Asheville, North Carolina, interacting with all the senior policy officials of agriculture for each state in the U.S. Todd Staples, Ted McKinney. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Wow. Individuals, names of folks that, if you're in the ag sphere and in public policy, these are the folks that are making that type of impact. So it was a phenomenal experience. Met my wife there, who was also an intern for Congressman Louis Gohmert out in East Texas.
Really? Wow.
Yes, I know, right? You're dropping all these names that we know and love.
World.
Well, as I mentioned, I met my wife, decided, let me step away from DC and follow Courtney and see where it goes there. And the next 2 years were amazing. It was a whirlwind. We, shortly after moving to Dallas, I took on a role at North Forney FFA, The next semester, Courtney came in and taught with me, and we just hit the ground running with a FFA chapter that was really new. We were that young energy, not old enough to be the parents of our students, right? But old enough to be the older siblings, just a little bit older. And there was a lot of learning, I guess, learning opportunities, working with parents, facilitating education that meets the needs of what your students expect or want to earn. And then also with that, complementing their education with the success outside the classroom, CDEs, LDEs, your SAEs, all of these different things, livestock judging, the exhibition of livestock themselves. At the end of the day, Courtney and I were never really the big experts, but we were resourceful. And so we utilize our contacts and our connections in the ag world to achieve success. And Aaron, we achieved so much success in those 2 years. But as I mentioned, there was something about DC that was still in my heart. So just short of moving to DC, I then transitioned into working full-time for an association, the National Association of Home Builders. Traveled for about 6 years. My territory included 19 states, 50,000 members who built 80% of the homes in America. And the biggest buckets I hit on were membership and career and technical education. Wow. Membership, because I've been a product of becoming a member of organizations, whether it was FFA, the Vocational Agricultural Teachers Association of Texas, which I know they changed their name, the American Rabbit Breeders Association, because I had a student that wanted to learn how to breed rabbits. So it was turning to these professional organizations that had the information, had the knowledge that I needed to fill over the gap. Fast forward, did that for 5 years, then moved on to commercial construction. But today I work for the Latino Corporate Directors Association as a manager of member engagement. And every day is like a holiday, Aaron. I'm getting a chance to interact, to support, to build a community of Latinos in corporate America, whether they're in the C-suite or ultimately our end goal, getting them onto the boards of publicly traded companies, specifically Fortune 1000 companies. And guess what, Aaron? All of that I shared today, the foundation of it all was my experience as a Texas FFA student.
Wow. Man, I'm speechless. That's, for the old guys like us, right? They say that the essence of leadership is to plant trees under whose shade you may never sit.
Yes.
And when I look at what you've accomplished and the incredible talent that you've created in yourself and those around you, you think about, how many people your passion's going to inspire. It's very contagious, by the way. So, you think how many other people are watching you and they say, just like Teddy Bird, there was something about that Justin kid. And there's somebody now saying, you know what, there's something about that young executive right there that I want to be like them someday. That's awesome. You said something I'm going to share that I've never shared before in an interview. I've shared it in a few stories, but you really got my attention a while ago with something that you said about where you grew up and your dad. And, when my mom and dad divorced, I didn't ever know a whole lot about my dad because, he and my mom had a pretty rocky relationship. And so when they divorced and he left, I didn't know a whole lot. And I remember telling my mom one time, I said, just box anything up of my dad's and send it to me just so I can see it, just so I can kind of reference it and see what my dad did. Well, I knew that when my dad passed away, they had put a World War II marker on his grave because he was a member of the U.S. Army during World War II. So I knew he was part of America's greatest generation. But I really got chills when I found his discharge papers because I knew my dad is a successful businessman, but I did not know that prior to going into the service, my dad was a farm worker and he worked in the fields in Louisiana. And when he went into the service, he used the GI Bill to improve himself and to go on to become the successful businessman. And so I look at what, opportunities God gave him He took advantage of them and he went on to do something great. You took on those fields and you're doing something great. And God gave me fields. They're not fields of cotton or crops or sorghum or wheat or anything, corn. He gave me cotton. He gave me kids. And he said, get out there and go to work and care for that. And that's a great story. I appreciate you sharing that. I remember also when I worked for Congressman Sarpolis, and I remember going to my first inaugural, and it was President Clinton's first time to be inaugurated. And I remember standing there in the mall, and I'm right behind the front seats, and the congressman's up there. He's standing next to the Bushes and the Clintons. And, the congressman grew up at Boys Ranch like I did. And he was a state FFA president. We both grew up at Boys Ranch. We both became state FFA president. And I remember later that afternoon, that evening, we were just sitting by ourselves and we had that moment. And we said, we're not supposed to be here. But because of the FFA, it gave us a path to find more opportunities and improve our stead in life. And exactly the way you approached it, you said, okay, I've been given this organization. They put this jacket on me that gives me a hug. The jacket hugs you, and then it says, here's an opportunity. I tell the kids all the time, our job as adults is to create the opportunity. Your job is to determine the outcome. And that's what you've done. You took those opportunities and look at what you've done. What an accomplishment.
Thank you, Aaron. It started with culture, the culture you have at Texas FFA. I mean, it was something that I had never had before. And now as an adult, I strive to find those communities. And to your point, if they're not there, let's terraform this and let's create it so it meets our needs.
So you've obviously excelled, and I've noted that, and I don't mind sharing on this interview that people that know me know I'm always saying, live your brand, live your brand, live your brand, live your brand. By what you post, share, comment on, ought to kind of know what your brand is. This man right here, Justin, does it very well. If you follow him on social media, it's very easy to see. He's very strong family. He's very strong passion. He's very strong committed to excellence, personal growth, career success. So when I look at your accomplishments and I follow your accomplishments, I guess my question to you is this. Through the FFA, what would you say some of those competitive edges are? What are some of those skill traits that the FFA gave you that you've been able to use and multiply for the success that you have today?
Man, that's a loaded question. I mean, there's so much to that, but it starts with, and that's why I love the Texas FFA Association. It's very intentional, but it started with my soft skills. As I mentioned earlier, I didn't have that self-efficacy that allowed me to communicate my passions. But I think through the FFA, through its intention of having each of us say the FFA creed out loud to each of our peers, working on, job interview in itself, like these small components add up into something larger. And to that effect, it allowed me to create intention. When I say that, I'm referring now to the SAE, the Supervised Agricultural Experience. It was something I did not enjoy, I'll profess, as a student, with the record keeping, but the principles of documenting, of strategizing, of setting your goals, the long-term effect. And I think it's corroborated through our successes and our failures. For example, yes, I had the opportunity to win some contests, but I also didn't win a lot. I did run for state office, fell short, and that was probably the hardest lesson learned, but it also reminded me of, did I put in the work? Did I put in the effort to better prepare myself? It goes back to all of these things that the FFA connect me with. And this is going to surprise you, but Texas FFA night with the San Antonio Spurs. Grew up with the Spurs, never went to a game. The only reason I went to the games is because the Texas FFA Foundation Association provided us, the students, a night to go out there. And it gave me a chance to see my role models in person. Tim Duncan being that big one, and he has this lullaby that his mom used to sing to him before she passed away. But essentially, it went like this: good, better, best. Never let it rest until your good is better and your better is best. So maybe we don't always achieve that success that we are hoping for. I would have loved to have been a state FFA president, but I fell short there. Doesn't make me any less of a person. It just reminded me how I need to better prepare, and also reminded me that I'm a growing person and learning is lifelong. So I hope that answered your question, but through it all, it was giving me a space to learn, to grow. And if I failed, I wasn't criticized, but supported. Justin, sucks, but that's okay. There's still so much more opportunity out there. Doesn't mean this is the end chapter.
And you just said a lot. By the way, have you met Victor Guetta?
I don't think so.
Okay, Victor's on the foundation board. You need to meet Victor Guetta. Victor was a FFA member from the Rio Grande Valley. Their family owns La Muñeca Cattle Company.
Okay, I think I've followed. I've seen them strong supporters of Texas FFA.
Yeah. But
And
Victor's got a very similar story to yours, by the way. Very.
I love the community down in RGV. I mean, that Area 10 community, it was so relaxed, so nonchalant. The ag teachers just got together, and I I don't know if it's safe to say, when we go to area camp down in Sinton, Texas back in the day, you'd have like all the ag teachers in this like tub, and I called them beach whales, but they were just, getting together, chatting about the incoming year, and, celebrating everything FFA.
Yeah, there's something special. I do agree with you, by the way. We have a lead trip where we take teachers on a leadership development experience, and our trip through the Rio Grande Valley is always one of their favorites, because unless you've ever immersed yourself in the culture of the valley, you don't really understand when we say valley in South Texas. A lot of people think San Antonio, and I'm like, I don't think you understand. You got to keep going to get to South Texas. But I think you and Victor would have a special connection, by the way. So I would encourage you to look Victor Guetta up and connect with Victor.
Thank you, Aaron.
So let's stay on this for a second here. So just based on your experience and your observations, okay, if you were to give an FFA member 3 tips for leadership, development, personal, and career success, what would be 3 tips that you'd give an FFA member? What would you tell them to do? Do these 3 things. What are they?
Communicate effectively. That's number 1. It's something that I'm still learning. I involve myself with a bunch of volunteer groups, and the reason I say communicating effectively, number 1, is you're going to find that wherever you are in life, work, maybe your volunteer work, if you have kids, school, you're going to work with other individuals who have a different background, have a different experience, have a different idea of what perfection is, right? And so when I say communicate effectively, it's knowing, 1, where you stand, what you're trying to achieve, and 2, working to, how would you say it? Working towards a common goal. While it may not be the exact goal, it may be different, compromising, through it all, at the end of the day, being able to communicate what it is that you feel. They're not always comfortable conversations. It's not, I've been through several difficult conversations in some of the groups I volunteer with, but at the end of the day, it's also celebrating the successes, whether it's your own or as a collective group. That's the first one. The second one is being intentional. We have these goals, right, in life. I know for me, there's a certification, a CAE, Certified Association Executive. It's a goal of mine that I want to achieve. There's other things, owning a home. But what are we doing to build up to that? Are you in a career? Are you in an occupation that allows you to achieve those things? Owning home, travel, all of those things. If not, that's okay. It just means you need to build up, to skill up, right? But likewise, professionally, be intentional. Don't settle. I think that's one thing that gives me much frustration is I see these other young professionals that I've met, or even established professionals who don't push the needle to challenge themselves. And for me, I think that's a great loss for them because they won't achieve that growth that would intentionally allow them to gain those spaces, the access, the influence, the leadership. So that's the second part. Be intentional. And the last one I'm a huge proponent of is volunteerism. Being a steward of all the communities we're involved with. I don't have children, but I realize that I have a lot of really interesting experiences that I want to share with others because they may learn from it. So for that, I mentor. I mentor young individuals, first generation college students at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. And I try to advise them, give them direction, guidance, expanding their horizons, being that invisible push behind them to achieve successes. And I haven't had very many mentees, but the ones that I have had, I'm very proud of them. I'm proud of what they have achieved. I'm proud to continue to support them. And the residual effect is they're teaching me. But then also the communities we live in, Aaron, there's, whether it's, the parks, our education system, local boards and commissions, just in Kansas City alone, we have something like 8,000 nonprofits. One in 9 Kansas Cityans is employed by nonprofits. And I think 30% of the Kansas City population is robustly involved with donating philanthropically to nonprofit organizations.
Wow.
The reason I share that is there's a space for all of us to contribute. But if we're not seeking those spaces, then we're not going to achieve those solutions. We're not going to learn from you that might help us progress faster. So those are the 3 things I would, pass on, like that communication effectiveness, that intentional participation, and then volunteering. Interesting fact, a volunteer's time is worth $27 an hour. So if you can give an organization 10 hours, 100 hours, 1,000 hours, that organization is just going to grow so much from it. But it starts with being able to share that time, willing to share that time.
We talk about in the world of philanthropy, the 4 T's: time, talent, treasure, and testimony. And when it comes to philanthropy, that's really what you're after, is time, talent, treasure, or testimony. And when people give you their time, listen to how valuable that is right there that you just said. By the way, in today's world, I know there's a lot of people, and I do know there's things called influencers, and they get on social media and they become influencers. And I'm not taking anything away from that. But let me say this about what you just said. I still go down once a quarter and I volunteer at the boot camp. And I go down and I talk to at-risk kids because that was my background. That's where I came from. And I can tell you that I've never had one of them ask me about something in social media, something that was a hot topic of the day. What they appreciate is just the time that we spend together. And the thing that makes you the most rewarded at the end of the day is when you leave and they say, "Hey, thanks, Mr. A, for coming by to check on us." That like you said, you can't put a price tag on that. You did. You said $27. I tell you, it's more than that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because that's gold, because you shared some of your time. And that's the one thing you only get to spend. You don't get it back. So that's pretty awesome that you've explored that.
Can I share one more?
Sure, absolutely.
The shadow of them all. But I think the other thing too is if you see something, say something.
Yeah.
That's huge too. Enough of us don't speak up, and there's no progress if we don't contribute our voices, right?
Well, there's an old saying, silence is acceptance. And the other side of that too is that mobile devices and cellular phones, they've turned people more into witnesses than warriors. And a lot of times it's more that I would like to witness something than I would be a warrior. And there's something noble about being a warrior. A warrior was somebody that was respected. They were spiritual. They had focus because they knew that their task was a very genuine and authentic task. And so I do appreciate what you're saying, that we do need people to get involved. And when you see a need, that's what I tell the FFA kids all the time. I said, if all you're going to do is take, buy my fruit, buy my sausage, buy my animal, give me that scholarship. If all you're going to do is take, I got news for you. It's going to run out one day. But if you can learn to serve, it'll never end. Because the challenges that have been put in your life, the challenges that were put in my life, they were put there for a reason. I tell the kids, and I told this to adults too, I said, think of it this way. You are being given every experience that you've had in life, every one of them, Justin, every experience you've been given, because God has somebody he's going to put in your path one day that needed those experiences to give that person the value at that moment that they needed. And that is an incredible thought. That is an incredible thought, to think of how our life experiences are designed to support, bless, or inspire, empower somebody else.
I agree. It's faith, right? Mm-hmm. Faith in each other, faith in our country, faith that despite what we see on national headlines, we're all, thinking about this, we're all Americans and we all call this home, right? And I have no intention of leaving. So let's make this, a better community, not only for today, but for the generations to come.
Well, and as you and I both agree, I believe that the FFA kids are what give me hope.
Oh yeah.
Because they're good stewards. I talk about the 3 R's. People talk about we got to get back to the basics, reading, writing, and arithmetic. And I say, listen, I worked in a boot camp, I worked with truant offenders, and I worked in a prison. Everybody that I did work with, they could read, write, and do math at some functional level. But I do agree with the 3 R's, but I say the 3 R's are respect, responsibility, and resiliency. I think that if we can teach people to respect themselves, their fellow man, to be responsible for themselves, their families, their communities, their state, their country, and learn to get up when you've been knocked down, be resilient. Like you said, I loved it when you said a while ago, because I've had all these flashbacks. I remember getting culled at the State Fair of Texas, and I got culled by this professor who went on, and I had his class at Texas Tech, and I had to remind him that he culled me. And, I learned as much getting the gate as I did getting a blue ribbon.
Yes.
Like you said, you learn from all of these experiences in life. Justin, I really appreciate you taking time today. I'm inspired by your career. I think I'm even more excited to see what's next for you, because, success begets success. And it's amazing. You start looking around the corner, and a lot of people won't even look around the corner. But you're one of those guys that you're saying, oh, hey, wait a second, what's around this corner over here? I want to see what's around here, because there might be something bigger over here. And, I think that's admirable. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we wrap up?
Oh, man, there's so much. Live the model, live the FFA model, learning to do, doing to learn, earning to live, living to serve. If you follow each of those buckets, I can guarantee you that you're going to situate yourself, not only professionally, but inside, for success. And I think you hit it on it earlier. Don't do things and, expect your work to, do the good work without the expectation of getting something back.
That's right.
Think allocentrically. Think of others before yourself. Because if you do that, then I guarantee you're going to create a community of support that's going to go a lot further than what you by yourself can do. And then actually, there was one last thing. It was, I just wanted to leave off with a quote.
Sure.
And the reason I share this quote, and I hope I alluded it earlier in this conversation, is, membership. There's so many professional and trade associations out there. Even years after wearing that blue corduroy jacket, you're going to be navigating a space where other professionals are. And I promise you, if you get involved with that industry, whether you're a dentist with the American Dental Association or the American Rabbit Breeders Association, or maybe you're in the healthcare field, there's an association for everything. But what I'm trying to share is continue the work, the effort that you did in the FFA outside of that as a professional. And there's this really neat quote from Theodore Roosevelt. So because every man owes a part of his time and money to the business or industry in which he is engaged in, no man has the moral right to withhold his support from an organization that is striving to improve conditions within the sphere. If we want change, we want progress, join an organization and start being involved.
Wow, that is great. Will you mind sharing that quote with me? Email me that quote so I'll make sure I've got it. That's great.
Yes, sir.
That is great. Well, you know, I'm fond of saying, if you want to know what the future is, grow it. Bottom line, if you want to know what the future of this country is, you got to grow it. Well, what does that take? Well, there's a quote that's attributed to Abraham Lincoln. It says that the philosophy of the schoolroom in one generation will become the philosophy of government in the next. So the reason we created the Growing Our Future podcast is we wanted to bring on subject matter experts, people that are willing to share their time, talent, and treasure, and these little apples of gold, so that maybe a student that listens to Justin's story says, you know what? I don't know about Tom Ziegler's story, and I'm not sure about Mike Rowe's story, or I'm not sure about Taya Kyle's story, but wait a second. There was something in Justin Reyes' story that I can relate to. Well, Justin, that's planting the seeds of greatness, my friend. And that's what this podcast is about. If you want to know what the future is, grow it. But we got to plant the seeds of success. And that's what we did today. You shared some of your time, talent, and treasure and your testimony with us. And as a result, you have probably planted trees under whose shade you will never sit. So I just want to tell you how much I've enjoyed having you today, how much I enjoy following your career, and will continue to do so. We leave each podcast with a fun question.
Oh.
So the question is this: what's the best concert you've ever been to?
Ooh, best concert. You know, I was reflecting on this just last week. Best concert ever. Oh, man. You got me there. So, I would think it's Garth Brooks. I saw Garth Brooks in 2017 here in Kansas City. Growing up, I was a huge George Strait fan. Just saw him in concert earlier this year at Arrowhead Stadium. But there was something about the performance that Garth Brooks left that was not comparable to any other concert that I've ever been to. All songs we grew up with, or at least I know I grew up with, listening to FM radio. The man made me laugh. He made me cry. He made me celebrate. And I think that's for that reason. And also because I could sing along with the songs. For that reason, it was probably the most memorable concert that I ever had the opportunity to go to.
That's awesome. I've seen Garth myself, and I do know what you mean when you have those concerts that just hit you at all levels.
Former FFA member too, right?
I think up in Yukon, Oklahoma, if I'm correct. Yeah. We're proud of all of our alumni that go out there and do great things. We'll circle back. We'll have another follow-up conversation about where you're at in Kansas City. And anyway, again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining our Growing Our Future podcast. It's always an honor to bring subject matters on. I hope y'all got as much out of Justin today as I did. I meant his passion for learning, his passion for life, his passion for excelling and looking forward, not looking backward. It's contagious. And I that's why I'm excited to see where he ends up. So anyway, again, we're going to close by saying what we always say. If you want to know what the future is, grow it. Plant seeds of greatness today, nurture them, take care of them. And something just tells me you might be that mighty oak someday that somebody stands firm under, and that guards and protects and shelters and shades, grows and inspires. Thank y'all for joining us for the Growing Our Future podcast. We will catch you down the road with another episode and another great interview. Thank you, Justin. Appreciate you joining us.
Thank you, Aaron.